Hi, we're back with On the Heavenly Spheres, chapter 7, and we're in the houses chapter, and we're starting on the signification of the 12 houses on page 88. Here we go. Each house contains a very rich array of significations. It defines topics, people, actions, directions, colors, and parts of the body, etc. Nevertheless, not all these significations are applicable to all areas of astrology. Some are specific to mundane astrology and others to horary, etc. The principal significations of each house are noted in the following pages, along with the appropriate branch of astrology when necessary. Ooh, silence. Sorry. Also listed for each house are the specific associations and rulerships, such as colors used in horary astrology and the anatomy used in medical astrology. So now we're going to start with the first house. It is angular and masculine. The first house has the ascendant as its cusp, making it the most important of the astrological chart. The, the ascendant represents the principle of individuality in the chart. It marks the hour of birth and therefore the total uh, celestial configuration of that moment of birth. It is the foundation of the astrological chart. The term horoscope comes from the Greek. No, I can't pronounce. I have no idea. It's very Greek and means to see the hour. For classical authors, the term horoscope is synonymous with ascendant. Thus, if in a classical text it states the horoscope of an individual is Leo, for example, it means Leo is the rising sign and not the sun sign. The first house represents the individual, whether in a birth chart or in a horary. In charts of events or collectives, it also indicates the subject in question, country, business, project, etc., and its characteristics. In a nativity, this is the house of life, signifying all the conditions that surround the individual. It refers to physical appearance, stature, appearance and form, as much as to motivations and objectives. The tastes, the mannerisms, the mentality are in large part defined by the first house. In questions of health, it signifies the vitality and the general appearance. In the body, it is specifically tied to the head and the face. Thus, in medical context, the planets in this house, can represent conditions or blemishes, diseases, birthmarks, scars, etc., in those parts of the body. In horary astrology, the first house defines the individual that poses the question, describing that person's appearance and state of mind at the moment of the question was asked. With respect to color, the position of the significator in this house describes people, animals, or objects that are white to gray or generally light in color. Oh, cool. I'm getting a little extra education. Love it. In the mundane horoscope, eclipse, ingress, etc., the ascendant indicates the general state of the location for which the chart is constructed. It signifies the nation or kingdom as well as its people and condition. For the second house, it is succedent and feminine. The second house represents resources, whether they refer to an individual or to a collective. Because it is the house succeeding the ascendant, it is considered to support the ascension of the first. In a birth chart, the second house represents the resources and assets of the person, his or her wealth or poverty, and the way he or she manages possessions. In horary astrology, the second house signifies the possessions of the querent and his or her movable goods. It refers to questions about loans, profits, and losses. And in the case of duels and legal questions, it represents those who support the querent, friends and assistants. On matters of colors, it is associated with green and sometimes the shades of red. In a mundane chart, it indicates the resources and economy of a people or nation, its supplies, its allies, or supporters. In battle, it signifies the attacking enemy. That's curious. It signifies the attacking enemy I think that would be the seventh because the attacking enemy doesn't support. Okay, curious. In medical astrology, the second house represents the neck from the nape to the shoulders. Third house, Caden and masculine. The third house represents brothers, sisters, and close relatives in general, cousins, sibling in laws, etc. It indicates the condition that surround them and their relationship with the native. It is also the house of short journeys, travel to places nearby or within the same cultural context. In traditional terms, the third house also represents journeys by land as opposed to journeys by sea, which are signified by the ninth house. The third house shares with the ninth house the topic of religion and legal knowledge, although to a lesser degree. The third house seems to be related more to the practical and mundane expression of these topics, although this distinction is not always clear in the works of ancient authors. Thought, intellect, and communication are also central topics of this house. In Horary, the astrology of the third house represents all types of messages, letters, conversations, etc., as well as those who transmit them, messengers, postal carriers, internet, etc. Within this context, rumors and gossip are also topics of this house. Colors associated with this house are orange, yellow, and similar tones, like saffron, rust, etc. Saffron is a great color. In a mundane chart, the third house represents means of transportation, streets, bridges, etc., the media, newspaper, magazines, and all manners of reports and official communication. In medical astrology, the third house signifies the shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers. And now to the fourth house, which is angular and feminine. The fourth house, also known as the angle of Earth, represents the base or foundation of the horoscope. Its symbolism is very rich. In a nativity, the fourth house symbolizes the family origin. Generally, it represents the parents, but in particular, it signifies the native's father. Along the same lines, it indicates the ancestral roots or any matter pertaining to one's genealogy. Turn the page. Other central topics of this house are assets and possessions. In contrast to the second house, which represents solely movable possessions, this house is related to the immovable possessions of the individual, like houses, land, and other types of property, or the resources acquired through family's inheritance. In another context, it also represents the end of life and the conditions that surround it. What happens after death and the grave? In horary, in a horary question, it signifies all topics related to land and houses, from its purchase or leasing to its cultivation and treasures buried in it. It indicates the quality of the land or the house that it is purchased, as well as the quality of the soil of an agricultural plot. It can also be used to determine the end of a matter. With respect to colors, the fourth house is associated with red. In mundane astrology, this house represents castles, forts, and buildings in general, as well as gardens, fields, forests, grazing, and croplands. Natural resources, mineral and timber, etc., are also part of its symbolism. The wife of a king, the consort queen, as well as his concubines are also indicated by this house. Similarly, it also represents his enemies and those of the government. And in more specific context, it can also represent a city and its mayor. In medical astrology, the fourth house is associated with the thorax, chest, and lungs. The fifth house. In a natal chart, the fifth house indicates the children, their condition, and the relationship to the individual. Also associated with this house are all playful activities, entertainment, pleasure, and loves, and passion. Artistic expression is also included in its symbolism. In a horary question, the fifth house signifies the matter of one's offspring, children in general, pregnancy and fertility, as well as invitations for banquets, parties, and other leisure time activities. In terms of color, it represents white, black, or honey-colored things. In mundane terms, the fifth house represents ambassadors, embassies, as well as a place of entertainment, bars and stadiums, etc. In some contexts, it represents the resource of a city, its foods and supplies. In medical astrology, the fifth house signifies the stomach, liver, heart, back, and sides of the body. Sixth house, cadent and feminine. In a nativity, the sixth house represents diseases and lesions, the weakness and the tendencies of the individual towards debilitation, as well as the constitution and humors that originate them. It also represents the people that work for the native and his or her relationship with them. Traditionally, servants and slaves, today, contract laborers and services. Obligations and daily tasks are also a topic of this house. Domestic animals and livestock, smaller than sheep, not as big as a horse, smaller than sheep, are indicated by the sixth house. Today we use this attribution for pets, cats and dogs, etc. The color associated with this house is black. In horary astrology, the sixth house is related to questions about disease, their nature and duration, as well as employees, cattle, or pets. In mundane astrology, the significations are the same, but instead associated with the country or region under study. In medical astrology, the sixth house represents the lower abdomen, stomach, and intestines. I think I'm going to pause here and we'll do the next one next as we're halfway through. Thanks.